So thanks for joining, Richa. And I am really excited to be talking with you today. And so are our audience. Uh, I posted your I posted a note about our conversation, and there were quite a few people already, you know, pinging and wanting, liking the topic a lot. Right. Uh, so, Richa, I'm really intrigued and curious. I've been following you, reading your articles, and we met briefly in a workshop as well, right? You've had an amazing journey. You studied in India and then you've been working in different countries. So, with this rich background, which cuts across different cultures and countries, how has this journey shaped who you are today?
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me, Sonia. And I'm also super excited to be here and to talk to your audience. So, yeah, this journey has actually been a very important part of my life. Like, it's been well intentioned and well planned. All the moves that I've had, that was one of the biggest goals I had in my life up to a certain point. And I think it started with this curiosity of exploring life beyond, one place that I was familiar with, India, where I was born. And along the way, yeah, all these multicultural experiences, meeting different kinds of people, I think this has just brought about a very different learning, opened up to ideas that I would previously have not even considered. So I'm really grateful for that experience. And moreover, it has changed my outlook about India completely. Because growing up in India, and belonging to a middle class family, we always hear about, this struggle that our parents had to go through. And, it's a large growing population, and the kind of culture, the political history we've had. So uh, we learn to appreciate the challenges, but we sometimes overlook the good part that comes with it while growing up. And it has taken me all these years to accept the good that comes with my conditioning, which is my work ethic, the courage, the determination, the resourcefulness. All of this I owe it to my roots. So if asked me this question 10 years ago, I might not have been able to answer it this way. But yeah, like I've really been able to appreciate my country better after, and my upbringing better after experiencing all these different lifestyles.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of learning and experience behind what you said. And I, I don't want to guess what it was, but what were some of those things that helped you through these transitions? For example, when you finished your education and then you moved to a workplace, a corporate environment, then countries, what were those one or two things that really helped you build a mindset, helped you make these transitions?
That's a great question. So I would say there's like typically two things that I have focused on quite intentionally. Like first, the definition of success. Like success in itself is quite subjective, right? Like we can tie our success to all the external parameters and still end up feeling quite empty inside. And then there's this internal parameter. So I have only measured my life until now with three parameters. Like first was getting married to the right kind of guy, because I think I kind of took for granted the kind of education and, let's say, the opportunities I was getting for academically and professionally. So that was for granted. Like I didn't have to strive too hard once I was on that path. But where I had to strive hard was like being this independent woman, and getting to marry somebody that could match those that intellectual level as well. And the second parameter was having all these experiences, being able to move to different countries and get that exposure early on. And the third was having a child. So all these three were like very well planned ones, but also the parameters that have shaped me into who I am. And my success is was actually getting these things in the right way at the right time. And that perspective came on as very late. Like earlier, I used to get perturbed when I saw that, hey, other people were chasing different things and they were getting different outcomes, and you tend to get attracted by that. But then the way I reframed myself was that, hey, this is not what's important for me right now. What's most important is that I get this family, or I get these experiences, learning wise. So I think that's very important, to be clear of what exactly you want, because we don't get everything in life. And that's why it's really important to pick and choose what we would want our experience to look like, so that we don't have too many regrets.
Oh,
And another thing, sorry,
no, no, please go on.
yeah, and the other aspect is learning. I is something that, that's been very critical to me. I've always been very curious, and learning opens up these new paradigms of your own blind spots and biases that you would otherwise overlook. So yeah, like all this experience, the key thing that has helped me is experimenting.
Hmm.
So experimenting without knowing how it's going to turn out, and being willing to pick myself up and try again, and not knowing the outcome, of course, but still going on. So yeah, I think those are the two things. Just being very clear what success is, and being open to experimentation and learning along the way.
Yeah, I find this very interesting, and I often see it in your come across it in your articles as well that you write. And I have them on my notifications, so they pop into my box. Uh, i- the point around your self awareness, how you've learned to, uh, like you shared just now, figure out what's important for you without getting distracted by what everyone else is doing, which is very easy. It's a very competitive world. And I think we all go through those phases. So I really admire that about your also your sharing it in a very open and transparent way. It's not it's not usual and easy for people. So that kind of brings me to my other question and thought, which is in your different roles, right? In your role as a leader, as a parent, you're a parent, mother, as a wife. What does the word learn mean to you?
Again, another great question. And by the way, Sonia, let me tell you, I would love to know your answer to this question as well, as a learning leader.
All right.
Uh, to me, I think, yeah, it's about staying open and seeing things from another perspective. Like essentially, that's what learning means. So, for example, like we're all often in states where we're saying something that the environment isn't right. That's a constant thing. Like I have done that in three different continents. So that's our first inclination to say that there's something wrong with this environment. uh, and I was in a yoga class last week, and what happened was, I had never been to a hot yoga class before, and like I'm trying to stay away from things that are like the latest trends. But somehow, like, the concept I wasn't familiar with it was that you learn to deal with the environment, like that heat is signifying and like a hostile environment, and you have to learn to deal with that within that session. So like there were things that I was kind of not accepting of, or let's say not learning quickly enough, related to something professionally. And that yoga class opened up my eyes, because it was the same kind of experience, just me not being open to that heat, and then like realizing that I need to feel that to heal it, and to own it, to be able to do something about it.
Mhm.
And that feeling was okay, that just kind of opened up doors to so many new thoughts, even at work. So yeah, like just staying open to different perspectives. And sometimes it's not easy, with all the experiences we've had. And like at a certain age, so now I'm going to be 40 in a few months, and it's the first time in my life that I'm actually open about even sharing my age. But still, like like I've also reached a point where I have strong opinions, and I have made those opinions after quite a lot of different experiences. So I have good reason to hold on to them and not change them. But then if I open up myself to learning, I can, like, it still opens me up to these different perspectives and these reminders that we constantly need. um yeah, so that yoga class was definitely something that helped me see things in a new light recently.
That's
And
that's
yeah,
awesome,
and I
I
always
said.
yeah. Yeah, and learning is always presenting a new challenge. So like I'm the kind of person who will accept steep learning curves more gracefully and might get bored otherwise if it's not there. And yeah, so yeah, that's just again another piece of something to know about yourself, what kind of work you like doing, and what is it that makes you come alive and enjoy more. And as a leader and parent, it's also important to learn to recognize others needs, and support them. So like in your role as a learning leader, that's what you're doing for organizations. But in all our individual capacities, it's something that we need to do every day to be able to support the development of our teams and our kids better, right? So that's also something which has come about to me as another thing to keep in mind about learning.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, and I hear some really valuable insights. I'm sure our audience uh, is going to really enjoy this as well. Take away that as a leader as well, you're responsible for the learning. It's not entirely, uh, it's not like learning happens on the site in a classroom or a workshop, but each one of us is responsible for our own learning and for enabling others in any role. You, as a leader, would have a direct impact on your team, on your, team members. So great. I really love that point. And I'm sure a lot of my L&D colleagues who are listening to us are going to love this point as well. Next question, which I've been really wanting to ask you. Do you think learning is limited to classrooms and workshops? So, the word learning or training, the first response I often come across is delivery, facilitation, or, like we discussed just a few minutes ago, creating content and then just passing on the information. Do you feel that's where it should be, or is it limited to classrooms and workshops?
I think like my let's say thinking around this starts from like the very first year of me starting my corporate job. And that's when I realized that hey, that learning in classroom is just going to be probably 10% of my complete learning. So whatever I learn there is something that I need to do on the job and learn in the real world how what it's going to look like. And I think I have like I work with Procter and Gamble. That's where I started my career. So they're one of the best organizations that I know out there in terms of developing this learning mindset, that they help you understand right from the beginning that hey, this is part of your job, but the other part is what you do on the job. Then supplement to that, like, the conversations you have with your mentors, your managers, around those aspects. So all of that is learning. So the days where we did a training or certification when we were just looking for a job or a promotion, I think that's going to completely change if it hasn't for most of the people, because learning is so much more. And if we keep that traditional mindset, it will not help us in this constantly evolving world.
Right.
And we learn every day. We learn
Mm.
from failure, we learn from our success, we learn by doing, which is the best way, which is the way I learn. And along the way, I think another important aspect is failure, embracing failure. And this doesn't come easy to many cultures, I would say. And it's not easy for us, especially like coming from Asia, where we've had to perform at a certain level to do well, and we're always used to winning. So just taking my example of these moves to Europe and Canada, when I moved to Europe, I was at a phase where I was doing an expat role at PNG, and I saw that the market was really good across all of Europe. And I used to get like some really good offers of external companies that wanted to pitch me and wanted to work with me. And personally, I was at a stage where me and my husband were living in different countries. Like, he was in Paris, I was in Brussels. And we didn't have that personal space time that we needed, and our work life balance was suffering a lot. So yes, I was doing very well in career, but my personal life was suffering. In contrast to that, when I moved to Canada, my personal life is great. I had a daughter, my family's here, my parents are here, my husband is here with me, and a family aspect is great. But like, the industry is very different here. um, Even procurement, the field that I work in, the kind of opportunities I see here are very different to what I used to see back in Asia and Europe, because the market is not really that evolved, and
Mhm.
it's not large enough as well. So I've always had to make those adjustments and accept those some of those failures. Like, I'm calling it a failure, which is an extreme statement, but what I mean is that it's not always winning. You might be winning on certain aspects, but you might need some adjustments on some of the other aspects. So again, what helps is seeing the bigger picture, practicing gratitude, and then doing whatever you can to focus on your long term goals, and yeah, and to make things better.
I really want to ask you this question, which is, when we are in the when we are in university, and some of us call it school as well, depending on which part of the world we are in. So we learn a lot of you're an engineer, and I am
Hmm.
an engineer. I remember learning psychology in perhaps the first semester and never touched it again. Uh, I personally, my mindset was, why am I even learning psychology? Why do I have to? And it was all about how will you manage workforce? What's the
Yeah.
kind of mindset? But that's all. That was like touch and go. Our goal was just to pass, get get through that exam. So, what as I went forward as well, and we focus a lot on the technical skills. Technical, when I say technical, I don't only mean IT, but I mean whatever domain you're in. But what I'm hearing you say is that self awareness, being showing gratitude, being willing to adjust, those skills are have really helped you through these transitions and in your career. How important do you feel it is to such trainings, be it at university level or in corporate? As individuals, how much of our time should we really focus on?
You bring up a great point, Sonia, because that's been a constant challenge. Like you, I didn't study psychology in engineering. I wish I did. Uh, but even otherwise, like I've had to search for books depending on what I thought I was going on in life, and then pick up on very different experiences than mine, and try to ask different people how they are going through certain situations. And as an expat, it doesn't come easy. Like people have had very different experiences who have lived locally, and that's all great. But like the kind of experiences you're looking for, I was able to get that feeling of people understanding what I'm asking about with only some of the other expats. So it wasn't easy to find this information. And even multicultural learning, it's something that I completely picked up from books. Like the culture map was one of the first books
Mm,
that opened up my eyes to like about 8 parameters of communication that I hadn't considered, and that was influencing every conversation I was having, whether at work, in personal life, or anywhere. And yeah, so I wish like there were trainings given proactively for certain experiences. And like you said, there are topics like around resilience, adaptation, which is a big untapped market in my experience. And the learning can be a bit of a combination of classroom experience, but it also has to be some kind of an experience where you can gauge if somebody is applying that and what challenges are they facing
mm-hmm,
when they are applying that. Because
mm-hmm,
like yesterday I read something about resilience, that resilience is an exceptional understanding of the environment. Second, being very clear of what's meaningful to you. And the third is being able to adjust and adapt as you go. So, all these three things, like how am I doing against that? Once I'm out of a classroom, it's something that people would like to know. So, just
right.
sharing my thought as somebody who has experienced these issues and learned by making mistakes. And of course, like that learning is a journey, it's never finished. But also like acknowledging that how much easier, or let's say how much smoother people's journey can be if they get this understanding at the beginning and some accountability to be able to practice it. So just something to think about as a learning leader
Yeah.
you know
And I hope all our learning leaders are taking notes. and that's a great point, and I love your insight here. Like I said, and I've mentioned a few times, I do read your articles, your writings, and I love the uh, you know transparency, the vulnerability in your articles to a great extent. And uh, and one of such articles was where it said three corporate lessons that you learned. So uh, what elements do you think a leader should focus on when it comes to nurturing and developing their team? Some more insights on it.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for, by the way, mentioning my article. I think that was something that was very well received as well. So as a leader, I think there are practices that I have adopted over the years, which haven't come easy. But I think some of the most important ones are being more open to listening, and being the one who's asking the tough questions sometimes, to be able to understand the situation better. The other aspect is just being open when you make mistakes. And
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that it's not the same as apologizing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we tend to over apologize and over apologize sometimes as women, and that's not helpful. So
Mm-hmm.
what I've started practicing more is to show that the feedback is well received, and to adjust my behavior. Even with my daughter, I do that now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say sorry, I just don't want it to be a sorry. I was like, okay, I am like, mama, you didn't do this for me. So I would be okay, next time I'll do it properly. Mama made a mistake. So I would rather say that rather than just say I'm sorry. And I have a 3-year-old who's holding me accountable to that. And yeah, and the other aspect I would like to highlight is that, initially, in my experience, I thought leader is somebody who's just going to probably give you the direction, and it's not that. More often than that, it's about helping people realize what's right for them, what's right for the organization, what's right for the bigger picture, and to be there to support them through that, to coach them through that by asking the right questions, versus nobody would like to just respond to your directions, right? And yeah, so influencing by other means than authority, I think that's also something that I think is an essential skill as a leader.
Awesome. And I guess just tying back to your point on the different cultures. So each of these, you can't bring in an aspect of a single culture into workplace.
Yeah.
Today, we are all, teams where we are from different parts of the world with different experiences. So that's a really great point. Thank you for sharing that. And
I would love to know your experience as well, Sonia. Like, what are the things or elements that have worked for you, as in your experiences? Yeah.
so, uh, well, I'm a learning leader, and that may sound partial, but learning and learning something new and working on a challenge, a problem, solving a problem is what keeps me uh, excited and going. So I'm curious and I love to solve problems. What's really helped me through all my life, be it a parent or a, a partner or a colleague, is the fact that I've been curious and wanting to learn. Learning means growth for me. Learning means a lot of things that you brought up resonate with me. It is about being self aware. I often feel that what's most important is what perhaps we are missing out. Like I said, I learned psychology. I realized the value of it 2 decades later. What I learned then, I
Yeah.
realized was the most important part. Engineering, that mindset has helped me as well. So, uh, learning has been my core, uh, propeller. Working on being curious, working on something challenging, problem solving, and learning about myself. Why am I doing something? Why am I reacting, or why am I not, taking a pause and then uh, saying something? It that came with a lot of mistakes. As a learning leader, if I have to offer a learning, I would say uh, coaching, and I've always been for that. I've always you know brought in elements of coaching or design thinking into my learning, design, and experiences for others. But I think that's the most important, and I would say, even if you can't get that in your environment, then as an individual, it's really important to go ahead and work on yourself and know who you are. And I think AI, these are the skills that are going to be the most important, you know,
That's true.
problem solving, curiosity, critical thinking. If I don't know how to think critically, I won't know when to use it and when not to, right? Resilience, like you mentioned, resilience is so important. Sorry. Resilience is so important, right? Uh, So, one of my mentors always said, uh, if you can't manage yourself, you can't manage anyone else. Unless you can manage yourself, you can't manage others. So,
Yeah.
let's back to you.
Yeah, no, understanding yourself is, I think, the key, and more than that, like even accepting yourself,
Yes.
because I think, yeah, like to your point, that we have so many different experiences. So, like your experience, like you just stumbled upon a chance where you realize that, hey, this is what I valued, and this is what
Yeah.
can help me help others reach full their full potential, and help me in the sense that you feel more fulfilled, right? So yeah, like you, I'm not coming from a background where we're taught to think about ourselves first, but I've realized that that's really important. To be able to serve others, first you need to understand and accept yourself. And that understanding, sometimes, yes, we can use the tools that are available, and that curiosity helps, but accepting ourselves is sometimes a whole new journey as well.
I think that's the toughest part, to accept yourself. But the beginning
Yeah.
is to understand. You're not kind of blinded by, you know, uh, who you think you are. Yeah.
That is true.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Very
you.
wonderful insights.
Oh. Yeah. So this kind of brings me to another uh, point which I love to ask everyone, which is, and I want to hear from you basically, which is, how do you feel when it comes to learning new experiences, knowledge, skills, making those adjustments? This, do you feel that as uh, overbearing, a chore? What's your feeling at that point when you have something new to learn?
So it depends on whether it's self driven or not. If it's something that I see as something that I need to learn, and if I need to learn it right away, then I'm super excited about it, and just grateful for the opportunity. But if it is not, then, I have to align my vision, either understand like why is it needed right now, why is it needed, and second, why is it needed right now, and then make up my mind so that when I show up for that, I have the right energy and plan.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, this, like I'm on this spectrum where I have too much that I have found for myself that I need to learn, and then I need to prioritize. So it's more of that situation that I'm super excited about a bunch of things, and I need to narrow it down to a few to be able to give them the right justice, and like, take the time to absorb those learnings. So this has come with time, but like, when I when I heard your question, I felt like, okay, this I don't face this problem as much. What my problem is just managing that tendency to try and take on too much.
Right, right.
Oh, what about you? How does it
Oh,
work for you,
I
Sonia?
think I'm very similar. I usually always have 10 things that I have to learn. And I have, I mean, sometimes I learn things which are completely, people tend to learn and wonder, why are you learning this? This is not your line of work, but I'm into it and I'm learning, and I have like a list of things. And I have to get through all of them. But prioritizing can be tough for me when it comes to learn something new. And I've done things like gone and done a boot camp on UX, and I designed a mobile app, so on. So I resonate with your point on, you know I have 20 things and I have to prioritize. I have a different problem.
And you have very different, varied interests, like, like what you mentioned about vegan cooking. And I know that happens when we adopt that learning mindset in all aspects of our life. And then you have, like, you are a core, when I look at your posts, I always get this impression, wow, it's way too technical. I don't even understand all of that. So yeah, having that technical experience, and then you try to balance it out with, all these other topics, rich topics like resilience and learning, and yeah, so that's pretty fascinating, Sonia.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Yeah. So I read in one of your articles, and you can see that I read a lot of your articles, and that your role model is your grandfather, right? So how has he shaped your outlook uh, in life?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, I've never talked about him. I've been meaning to write a full-fledged article about him, but it's just one of the things that I want to do proper justice to, so I haven't done it yet. Yeah, so I mean, he passed away when I was 5, and I remember very little. I just remember that every day I used to come back from school in that heat of Delhi. He used to always have this mango juice, freshly prepared mango juice ready for me. So I used to really look forward to that. That used to be the highlight of my day, coming back and seeing that my grandfather getting that juice for me. He was quite an influential person, and like, he started as a principal, as a scholar, of a gurukul in India back in his time in Haridwar, and then he rose rose up to become a member of parliament from there. And he was a member of parliament for about 10 years. So he has quite a track record of not just like political service, but even he was the president of Arya Samaj in India for a few years. So, everywhere sometimes as an adult, when I went to Mumbai for the first time and I went to the Arya Samaj office and I said that, hey, I wanted to learn more about my grandfather, people were surprised that, like they could meet somebody from my grandfather's family in person. And they handed me over his books and they said that, he's influenced so many of us and he's impacted our life and thinking by being here. So I was like pretty shocked to hear that. Like even generations remembered him, like, not just people from his generation, but 2 or 3 generations later.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as a kid, like after he had passed away, I found some of his books and I started reading those. So I remembered that the thing I noticed was that he was living in a time where the status of women in India was very different. And he was writing about the status of women, how it should be as we see it today, more like how we see it today. So I was pretty impressed that he could have that vision and he could say that, hey, this is how women ought to be treated, at equality, in equal terms on every level. And even used to call his own wife as Devi, which means a goddess. So he used to give that proper respect to his own wife and to my grandmom and to my mother as well. Like she married in a family of a different, let's say, caste system at the time. So it was quite a huge adjustment for my mom. And like the biggest help that she got in that time was my grandfather's influence. That he was pretty open and he was requesting other family members to open up as well, to be more accepting
Mm-hmm.
of her at the time. So yeah, so just like his books have had an enormous impact on me as a kid. And then, like, yeah, his career, of course, I hear a lot about his achievements. But what's really inspired me is how when I meet people who tell me that, hey, he has touched their lives and he was similar to everyone, like people coming in from some villages to some influential people. Everybody has the same kind of outlook about him. When he passed away, I remember there were gathering after gathering, so many and thousands of people in those gatherings, who used to come and who used to cry. And I used to wonder as a 5-year-old, why are these people crying so much? Like, what could he have done to impact their life? And now I understand it now, when I read his books and when I look back at all his rich legacy. That's when I see that the impact he had was not just because of his title, but because of the service that he did in the society, back in his constituency and in the areas where he lived. And that's what people remember. So yes, he's definitely a role model in that sense. That um, and I'm far far away, but that's what I would like to focus on in my next few years, to be able to do justice to his legacy.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Very inspirational and interesting. Like you said, his books were forward looking and his thoughts were thinking was also very forward looking. So thank you for sharing that. So that brings me to
Definitely somebody who like inspired me towards learning for sure early on.
awesome, awesome. So yeah, I mean, I can see that in your writings, and I can see in the way you want to also learn and gain new experiences. I was just thinking that to myself. I can see where perhaps you've inherited that from. So, thanks.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my favorite topic. You would have seen is about AI. So, with all the buzz right around AI, I'm curious to know what is your take on its impact. What's your take on AI?
So I like that. That's my common approach to all the new technologies. Like I've never been afraid of them. So
Mhm.
somehow, I've always been curious and excited about what's coming. And I know, like, I trust in humanity enough that, we always like tend to be mindful about like the potential harms, but then we figure out a way to manage those, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed about that. But like I am very excited about the potential there, and I think it's an opportunity for us to see that, like, it's about us evolving and beyond doing certain repeated tasks. Like, we don't enjoy doing repeated tasks, most of us, but it's something that we can do on autopilot. So, it's more like a habit. But if
Mm-hmm.
AI can take care of those repeatable tasks for us, that's an opportunity for us to be more creative, right? And you and I were so like, we like to write, right? So we have that creative let's say we've nurtured our creativity.
Right.
And so yeah, like I don't think we can think of it in any other way versus seeing the opportunity there. And I always like to come up with new ideas and new ways of doing things in the work that I do. And like I also look at where the market is trending. So
Mm.
World Economic Forum, they have predicted certain skill sets as the skills of future. So
Mm.
skills like collaboration, technology, creative thinking, learning, self-awareness, like these are some of the skills.
Yeah.
And these are a lot of things that we've talked about today as
Yes.
well. So yeah, like if you're focusing on the right things, I don't think we have anything like we need to be afraid of AI. And yes, there will be a day when singularity is achieved. My husband is into AI research, so he keeps telling me that
Awesome.
that day is not far when singularity is achieved. I think I'm more curious to see how that will look like. But I also like maybe this will come as not a new thing, but like I really like the fact that we're investing time into understanding our stories and sharing them, and building that as a brand, as an equity, because I think that's what's going to separate us in the future. If we understand ourselves and we are willing to share our stories and, be open to that learning.
Absolutely. I so totally agree with you. And I think today we've talked, today hearing you and hearing your transitions and what were the key things that have enabled you to move and make those shifts. Very clearly, the skills that are being looked at as the skills for future, which is not far, right? Uh, The future is here. So, very clearly, those are the skills I believe that enable individuals and groups or teams to move forward. Always they can, the coming time, it's going to become even more important. So, yeah, interesting. And
Yeah, I mean, you are. I see you really understand it well, and like you're using that a lot in the work you do. So you would be seeing, like, do you sense some kind of hesitation still in the market around using AI?
it's a cycle, right? Change is a cycle. It's like first you grieve why it happened, and then so on, so forth. You resist, and it's it's true in every kind of change, whether it's small or big, I believe. And even if so I was trying to evaluate myself. I believe I like doing new things, but am I 100% like the moment I see something new, am I like into it, or do I also hesitate for a moment? So yes, to answer your question, people I think are still trying to figure out. They know, I think one understanding is clear, that it's not going anywhere. Over the last year and a half, it's very clear that AI is here to stay, and organizations have started adopting AI as well. People are still hesitant. The other day, someone was asking, and I believe a bit of hesitation comes from not knowing what it is, not trying to use it, trying to figure out what it is, right? And reading and listening, and then kind of thinking, oh, uh, I mean, some people, some don't even believe that it can give you the right answer, right? We
Yeah.
believe it's like Google, right? When we say something, hey, I've Googled it. Google is like the Google search has become, I'm sure when it came, I don't even remember when Google search, when I started using Google search, but I always believed in let me try and then validate whether it's.
Hmm.
But to answer your question, yes, there is still hesitation. There, people are still trying to figure their way out. How it can it be used? What will it be helpful? And this is just the
Yeah.
start, right?
And you mentioned a great point that it's not understanding what AI is actually. Like
Yes.
that's the root cause. So if people like who are in that early stage, if you want to recommend something, Sonia, for them, like what could they use to build their knowledge? And sometimes, yes, like it won't exactly be going to an AI tool and using it because they have their mind. But is there like some resources that you suggest to people
There are
to build their
very,
understanding?
yeah, there are some very good resources. Microsoft has some very good free courses.
Okay.
They free. AWS as has as well. And I say Microsoft because Microsoft Copilot is accessible to everyone, right? Uh, ChatGPT themselves on their website, they list quite a few resources. You have to just go and search on their help. Uh, my best suggestion would be follow someone on LinkedIn and
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for those recommendations.
thank you. Thank you for asking. Yeah. So, Richa, you've several transitions, right? You've moved and uh, to me, it sounds like you were curious to explore. What advice would you give to our audience when it comes to, uh, you know, the importance of learning and how they can uh, make transitions in their career? What should they bear in mind?
So this is something that I read recently, but always have experienced in my transitions. I was always excited about the change, so that's like the first step. Like if we are positively motivated by something and we see the opportunity in it, we're optimistic about it, then we'll do our best to make things work. But at the start itself, if you're not really open to making a big change, then that's something that you should first address, before trying to make any kind of change in your career or in your life. The second aspect I would say is make room for learning, and all forms of learning, structured, unstructured. um, like even for me, learning as a parent is so important. I have a 3-year-old who I didn't think was old enough to know the national anthem, Indian national anthem or Canadian national anthem. But what happened was she surprised me the other day. Even before she turned 3, she could say the full Indian national anthem and the full Canadian national anthem. So Canadian national anthem, I was not surprised because she picked up
Yeah.
at her daycare. But the Indian national anthem, I was so surprised how she knows that because I hadn't thought she was ready to learn it yet. And my husband didn't teach her that. My mom didn't teach her that. And when I asked her who taught you, she told me a guy in her daycare who's 1 year older, an Indian. He is the one who taught her. And she can stand and she can say the full national anthem. And we were so surprised because I had never expected a 3-year-old to do that, or even before she turned 3, actually. So yeah, that's again, like, it shows my bias that I had made up my mind that hey, she might is not she's too young to learn, but she
Mm,
proved me wrong.
mm,
So yes, like this was a pleasant surprise. So this is what learning does to us, doors which are closed in our mind, they open up. And yeah, like it's only learning that can do that. So no matter what transition you're going through, what challenge you have, the one day you open up your mind, and you decide to be open to all sorts of learning, even if it is, like, say, not easy to hear in the moment, I think it's going to help in some way or the other. And that's how I have become open to looking at my biases and working on them. And yeah, like it's the light of learning, which can help us overcome all these fears, insecurities, biases that may get in the way. So yeah, that's all I would leave. First, being open to that learning, really open, and being optimistic about it. And second, then just implementing it in what we do.
Awesome. Great. Those are great insights and advice. And uh, I really love the point on bias. Being able to identify a bias is really, really, it's a great skill. So awesome. And Richa, if you had a chance to uh, have dinner with a historical figure, who would it be? And what would you expect to learn? What would you hope to learn from them?
So I think the easy answer would be my grandfather, but I've talked about him. So let me challenge myself in thinking about someone else. Um, Actually, I would be very interested in understanding how Mother Teresa, like how she did what she did, like how she serviced the people that she did, and that big change in her life. And like I'm somewhere on the cusp of like working on yourself. Like I feel like that's such a big journey in itself, in being able to serve others. So I feel like we're always in a state where change is happening, we're adjusting to so many things, then we're working on ourselves. And then I see these people like Mother Teresa, we hear about them, or people like Mahatma Gandhi, and we just don't know how they did what they did. Like how could they open up so much? So I would be really interested in seeing how Mother Teresa would have, like what made her change, because we're all brought up with certain conditioning and with certain ways, and it's hard for us to change later. We work on it and we make slow progress, but like there are people who have shown complete transformation and complete service. So yeah, like I would be very curious to understand that, and as a part of my learning.
That's nice. That's
Yeah.
really nice. Very, very, very important points and great. I really enjoyed this conversation today, and I have a whole lot of takeaways. I'm very sure and certain that our
Yeah.
audience also uh, they were looking forward to a couple of things such as career. How did you make those transitions? What is it's what's behind that, right? Making just the transitions is one thing, but thank you for sharing the insights in terms of what enabled you to achieve and make those movements. And uh, great points. And thank you for being so open in sharing the fact that it's not all rosy picture, that it wasn't always easy, that you had to strike a balance and make adjustments, and you continue to learn. The one message I'm taking away is that one has, even if one thinks that they have an open mind, there is still more to open. So I really took that away from your example of yoga, the hot yoga, and how it triggered so many other ideas in your mind, and it opened your mind to many other aspects that you weren't looking at. So that's my takeaway, definitely from today. That it's that like the Marshall Goldsmith often, I love his book, "What got you here won't get you there." So
Yeah.
awesome, and I really appreciate and thank you so much for coming and having this chat in early your time. And yeah, hope to talk again. on a different
No,
topic.
thank you. The pleasure was all mine, Sonia. Thank you for inviting me and, to talk about learning. I mean, that was the moment you mentioned it, it was like, okay, this is definitely something I would love to talk about. And, like even on the transitions, I wrote an ebook last year to help people with some of the things I learned around the journey. I'll be happy to share the link if it helps some people. It's been read by over 100 plus people. I've got some great feedback about the book as well. And I mentioned that because, like it's not something that I would have picked up just being in one location. It's all those different experiences that helped me pick up those learnings, and if it helps someone else's journey, I mean, I'm happy to be a contributor in that. And moreover, this was a great opportunity for me to learn about the work that you're doing, Sonia, and thank you for all those awesome questions. This was such a great and insightful conversation for me.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed. And for our audience, Richa, I think you also do some coaching around career transitions, international career. Do you still offer those?
I am not offering it actively, but like, if there's something that people need help with, I don't say
So
no.
you just
Yeah.
so they can reach out to you, and I'm sure they'll
Sure.
really benefit from the ebook. So
Yes.
great, awesome, and thank
Great.
you.